Welcome to the People Performance Podcast, where we discuss all things people performance. The People Performance Podcast is made up of 3 series. First up, we have the Leader Lounge episodes with founder of T2, Martin Johnson. Then we have the guest interview episodes. And finally, we have our performance episodes delivered by our very own T2 consultants. If you've listened to our podcast and you want to get in touch and find out a little bit more about what we do or how we can help and support you, reach out via help@trans2performance.com. You can stream and listen to our podcast on all available platforms. So for now, sit back, tune in and enjoy the People Performance Podcast.
Warning. This episode contains discussions of suicide and mental health. If you or someone you know is affected by the issues mentioned, help is available. Please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Remember, you are not alone, and there are people out there who can help.
And so I think, is it the same friend who then starts putting you forward for SAS Who Dares Wins?
And I can remember getting onto the flight and I can remember thinking, I think if someone came to me right now and said, you know, there's a back door here if you want to leave, I think I'd have jumped up. Interrogation was brutal. I think it was like 24 hours. You have your headset on. It was just a constant loop of like kids screaming, women screaming.
You've gone on to take on some ridiculous challenges. I mean, you must be a glutton for punishment, Mark, because you're doing these ultramarathons. You're doing 6-day events. You're putting your body through stuff that the average human being doesn't do. In fact, most human beings don't do it.
I did Dragon's Back, which is like 380 kilometres, which is like top of Wales, from North Wales to South Wales.
2018 hits and your life is turned upside down. And Chelsey, your wife, took her own life.
She was like unbelievable. She was beautiful. She was funny. She was clever. You kind of always got them questions, as thinking, what could you have done? What could someone else have done? Why did she do it? And it's hard to really come to terms with. It's so hard. I generally can remember periods where I thought, if someone could give me a pill that would just, end it all, I would happily take it. For me, I'd always encourage everyone is to, whether you're struggling or not, is just to speak to people and have them people who you can confide in with. If you've got a problem, try and share it. And generally when you do, you'll always feel a little bit better about it, and the right people will only support you with it.
So welcome to the People Performance Podcast with me, Martin Johnson, and my special guest today, Mark Peart. And I got that right, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
I've been talking about Mark's last name off camera. So Mark, welcome to T2. Mark spent 5 years in the RAF, 18 years total as a firefighter, which you are still a firefighter today. He's since become a little bit of an endurance athlete, taking on ridiculous challenges, which we'll come to shortly. And probably people watching or listening to this might know Mark from SAS Who Dares Wins, Series 4, back in 2019 it aired, I think. And not only that, but Mark was the winner of the show, one of the winners of the show. So it's been great to speak with you over recent weeks and months, Mark, and I've been dying to get you in here just to have a good old chat about some of these ridiculous challenges around your life so far, overcoming adversity, and just general with World Men's Mental Health Day coming up. If we can talk about some things that will be useful for the masses and the many out there, I think that would be a really good use of time. So first of all, Mark, welcome to the People Performance Podcast. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm good, Martin. Thank you. Firstly, thank you for having me and for inviting me. Really appreciate it. I've listened to your podcast for a while now, so it's a privilege.
Good. And on a scale of 1 to 10, are you nervous?
Yeah. I'm always nervous. It's weird, isn't it? It's like, even driving here today, you kind of go through that process of thinking, should I turn around? Like, weirdly, it's just there, even though I know I'm never going to turn around, it's like in my mind where I'm like, that kind of inferior part of it, where you think, should I just spin round and tell them I can't make it today? Like, for some weird reason, it's just there. But yeah, I'm a little bit nervous.
Well, that fascinates me with you, Mark, and we'll probably come to it throughout the pod, because we saw it on the show, SAS Who Dares Wins. in our interactions, I see it all the time. It's like that constant self-doubting, or am I in the right area here? Am I capable of this? And that self-doubt, or humility at times, let's call it, absolutely comes through. But then you go on to do amazing things and achieve things that most other people probably couldn't do. So I'm interested in the paradox between that and you. But we'll come to it throughout the pod. So Mark, clearly already on this pod, people can tell you're a Yorkshireman. And if you can't, then we're in trouble, right? But tell me a bit about you. Where was you born? Where did you grow up? What was early life like for Mark Peart?
So South Yorkshire, born and bred, Rotherham lad. Pretty like standard, I guess, upbringing. Very working class. One of 4 kids, so quite a busy house when we were younger. Mum and dad didn't have a great deal of money, but yeah, I guess very similar to everyone in that kind of area. I never felt like I went without anything, but just really working class. Parents both very hardworking, kind of instilled that into us from an early age. That's about it really from Rotherham perspective.
Love it. I'm from Hull, so similar, off a council estate, 2 siblings. I loved my upbringing though. Again, I don't know about you, but there's something to be said for growing up with not much, and so you have to find pleasure, fulfillment in different ways, in old school ways. Something to be said for that, isn't there? For that upbringing.
Yeah, I think I can remember being younger and being like a little bit envious of some of my friends that were like only children and kind of had everything. And I think it's only as I've got older I really appreciate now. Like you kind of always had a best friend there that were like your brother or your sister. You always had someone who you could hang about with and chat to and stuff like that. Which from speaking to my friends who were only children, they kind of missed out on that. But I think in hindsight, I feel really lucky at kind of upbringing that I had, and I think a good time as well. No social media, I think people are a lot looser, or like parents were a lot looser. We kind of come home, went street lights, come on, kind of attitude, which I don't think that's a thing anymore now.
As a parent now, Wes, you look back and think, like you feel a bit of a hypocrite. Because it's like, I've got 2 teenage daughters, and as you can imagine at the minute, we're like worried sick all the time. My wife has them on an app that we know where they are, and we used to just go out. And when I think about it, no more mobile phones, no tracking apps, nothing. And you think, wow, but society's changed in that sense, hasn't it? But our upbringing was very much, there's a lot of freedom and a lot of trust there, which is why you probably could have gone down the wrong path quite easily.
Yeah. It's like I say, I haven't got children, but I can imagine it's really difficult. It's hard. I don't know about society. I think these things were always there. Whatever it is, we're scared to give them that freedom to do.
It was always there.
It were always there. It's not something that suddenly happened. I think we're more aware of it. But yeah, and it's hard because you kind of go, I don't know, I feel like I learned more by having that freedom and messing up and getting grounded and, making mistakes. Is that kind of, it's what you learn from, whereas I feel like we're kind of restricting kids from that, and I don't know, will that make them worse? Will it make them better?
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell. Okay, so fast forward to leaving school. You joined the military. What age did you join the military?
I was 20 years old.
All right, so you had a little bit of time from leaving school, college, whatever it might be, but then you joined the military at 20. You joined the RAF, so you're probably very good at making tea and coffee. Is that fair to say, Mark?
Yeah, not too bad.
It's an in-house military joke, I'm Royal Navy, so Spencer works for me, he's RAF. So
well, it's weird, you'll probably know, like 20-year-old, I look back now and I think I was still, just becoming a man. And at the time when you join military, you're quite old at 20 years old, or like you're seen as one of the senior people going through training. And I was that person surrounded by like 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and you're kind of seen as being the senior bod from day one when you walk in, which is like, when in hindsight you look back and it seems a bit crazy. But I kind of always drawn to military. I always wanted to be in fire service, quite sadly, from like being a kid, kind of grew up watching Fireman Sam. My like great granddad was a firefighter, and I kind of heard loads of stories about that. So I was always attracted to it. But at the time, I applied when I was like 17 for fire service, but they were going through a period of not recruiting. So then I made the decision that it's like, well, if I join military, that'll kind of, I can kind of go there, develop, and then, 3-4 years I'll come out. And it did work that way, fortunately. But yeah, I think I was always kind of attracted to either military or that kind of policing or fire service. So for some reason, always kind of drawn to that.
And have you always been a little bit of a fitness junkie? Have you always been into your looking after yourself, training hard, even post pre-military, and then when you get in the military, you through basic training you're forced into it, and then you're sort of in the habit. I always found when I left basic training and went into serving the Royal Navy, you're sort of in that mold then of training. It's habitual. But was you always into it prior to joining?
Yeah, I'd say so. I always played a lot of sport through school. I kind of from leaving school, we were that generation of like trying to lift many weights as you could and get as big as you could, like and as strong as you could in that way. So I kind of left school, joined a gym, and then I can remember going to the gym like 4 or 5 days a week, and then I was thinking of joining military, and I can remember thinking I was a little bit panicky over doing some fitness tests, and I thought it was crazy because it's like, well, I'm spending 6-7 hours plus a week in a gym, and I'm not actually fit. You know what I mean? So I could lift things and probably felt confident in a t-shirt, but I wasn't actually fit. So that kind of changed something in me when I was joining military, where I just started running. Like, it sounds a bit Forrest Gumpy, but I just decided one day to just go out for a run, and I had the wrong shoes on. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I can remember leaving my mum's house, and I ran, and I did about 10 miles, and I was broken the next day, but I loved it, and I think it just brought something completely different to like the gym stuff, the lifting weights. Although I still do enjoy the like functional stuff, but yeah, it kind of, I think really joining the military really triggered it. I kind of always relied on sport for fitness, whereas joining military kind of made it where it became part of routine, getting out, running, and improving my fitness.
And you left the military in what year?
2013.
2013. And so then you go and start forging a life for yourself.
Yeah.
I remember coming out the military myself and adjusting, and then you're thinking about getting married, you're thinking about your career and what you're going to do next and all the rest of it. And then 2018 hits and your life is turned upside down. And Chelsey, your wife, took her own life.
Yeah. So weirdly, again, we were really young. Chelsey were 18, I was 20 when we met. I literally met her maybe 3-4 days before I went on my basic training. And
really?
Yeah, and I always...
Bad timing.
Yeah, and literally, I guess when people say, it happens when you least expect it, and it were definitely that. Like, I was done with Rotherham, done with South Yorkshire. It's like, I'm going off to military, and, life will start when I get there. And she literally lived in the next village from me. And I'd gone for some drinks with friends, like, as a bit of a leaving do. And I met her that night, and knew literally instantly, like a lightning bolt. Like,
do you know what? Fair play to you, Mark, because my question was going to be firstly, what's Chelsey like, and you're probably going to go on to explain that. But to meet someone before you join up, and then still go through and have a career and stay together, because I know the sacrifice, the time away, it's not easy.
No, it's really, really hard.
So it must have been right from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I always kind of joked to her that I think if it had been a month earlier, I wouldn't have joined military. It would just cause I was literally at that point, it's like, I've got to go. I had no choice at that point, really. But yeah, it was difficult because that really early part of his relationship, I wasn't really there that much. Or it was like, I was flying home for like, to have a Saturday afternoon with her to go back. And but I guess we learnt more about ourselves in that period. But yeah, it was one of them, like, I knew I pretty much knew straight away that, you know, we'd get married and like she was the one, and that was the plan. It was like, you know, I felt really fortunate that, that I met someone and we just fell in love instantly, and it was like a bit of a fairy tale. She was like unbelievable. She was beautiful. She was funny. She was clever. She was really down to earth. And it was just, it's so tragic and sad what happened. These things were kind of always there. It's not that, you know, I wouldn't say that it kind of came out of nowhere. I think, but you just treat it like most people, you know, that she had these things that were like generally like her own self-esteem and anxieties, and the weirdest thing is she had absolutely no reason at all. You know what I mean? She everyone adored her, but yeah, these things kind of progressed and got worse. And
it's interesting you say that, Matt, because, you know, there's a lot of people out there where you could look at it and say there's no reason whatsoever to feel the way you do. That there is, you know, when you really strip it right back, you're beautiful, you've got your health, you've got good friends, you've got a good career, you know, you're financially, you're okay. You know, you could tick all of these boxes. But the one thing I've learned about mental health over the years is none of that matters if what's going on in there isn't quite right. None of the physical materialistic things that you would usually say would cause you some form of it doesn't matter, does it?
No, and you try to think that you know, there's someone in a lot worse conditions, people with like other illnesses, but it is that invisible illness. You know what I mean? I think if we were sat here and I was saying, you know, she got hit by a bus or it was cancer or something like that, I think we'd all accept it and just move on. It's like you kind of always got them questions as thinking, what could you have done? What could someone else have done? What, you know, why did she do it? And it's hard to really come to terms with it. It's so hard. Whereas, yeah, I think if it was something, if we could sit here and just go, you were purely because of this, you could accept it a lot easier.
So would it be fair to say that you're in the most difficult position in 2018 that you've ever been in your life? Your life is turned upside down. And somehow you've got to crack on. Somehow you've got to compartmentalize it. You've got to digest it. You've got to work through it. And that's the most difficult thing in the world for the person who's left behind, for somebody like you. So a couple of things before we go into the next part, because obviously what we know within 6 months, something else happened, which also has the ability to change your life. But those 6 months running up to that, how did you get through?
Literally, I don't know. I don't think I could tell you if I wanted to. It's for anyone that you know, and I guess it's coming to everyone at some point. You know, we aren't sounding too pessimistic, but you know, it's such a roller coaster of emotions where you feel completely lost. And I generally can remember periods where I thought, you know, if someone could give me a pill that would just, you know, end it all, I would happily take it. Just, you know, I wouldn't say it's just even the emotional side, like the physical. I can remember actually like my body hurting, like you're in so much stress, and it's horrendous. You know, you don't sleep, you don't eat, but then you're just full of energy for some weird reason. You're just like hyper alert. You can't concentrate. You can't, you know what I mean? You can't sit and watch anything. It consumes every thought.
You're just never present. You can never just be still and present. Yeah.
And then you see life going on, and which is then even, it kind of breaks you because you see people being happy and you think, how can everyone be happy knowing that this is going off? And then you find yourself laughing at something, and then you kind of, you feel bad for enjoying moments, and guilty because it's like, oh, if anybody sees me laugh, they'll think that I'm not actually hurting, and then you feel like you need to kind of prove to people that you are hurting, and I don't think there's any real way of saying how to deal with it or how I dealt with it, or I think you just literally take every single day as it comes, and it's I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
How important was your friends and family in that early 3 to 6 month period? How much did you absolutely rely on them pulling for you and rallying around you?
Oh yeah, it's like critical, and it's weird. It kind of, people step up that you don't expect.
Really?
People don't step up that you kind of expected. It's weird. I'm not saying it's like you realise who your friends are. You realise the people that can actually cope with it, or you realise some people have got this ability to be able to help you, and people who you think would haven't and don't know how to deal with it. And it's nothing on them. It's so hard for everyone.
It's a difficult thing for anybody to
and everybody's hurting as well. You kind of have to remind yourself that she was their friend too, or she was like a daughter to my mum, and it's hard for them too. They're all suffering. But yeah, you really rely on I did on my friendship groups, on people. And I had a particular friend that, I kind of owe a lot to him, just the way he went about it. So weirdly, I went and moved in with my sister for a few months. I think I just gravitated towards her and just kind of relied on her. And he used to come around every single day and just knock on the door, and she'd come in and say, your friend's here, and I'd be like, yeah, I don't want to speak to him. And he'd do it every day he did it for weeks. And I didn't speak to him. I just said, no, I want to be on my own. And he wouldn't. He'd just go, yeah, no worries, see you later. And he'd walk away, and then he'd come back next day. Does he want to come for a walk? Does he want to do this? No. Then he'd walk off again, and then just one day, I don't know if he just wore me down, and we went out and we went for a walk, and it just kind of, I think that was like the first step to getting out. Realised that I could still go outside, that life was still going on. Then he'd come and he'd like, do you want to go for a little run? And we'd go for a run, and then it just kind of like perpetuated from there.
Sounds like an awesome friend.
Yeah,
friend. And so at this point, you need, it's fair to say, something to focus on. You need a distraction. You need something just to break that cycle of the way you are repetitively consumed and thinking about what is her horrific situation. And so I think, is it the same friend who then starts putting you forward for SAS Who Dares Wins?
Yeah. Like, again, I'd never seen the show. I kind of knew what it were. I can remember some lads at work used to watch it, and I used to think, like they're all faking it, like kind of thing. It's like,
but part of your Mark is going, could I do that?
Yeah,
because we always watch shows like that without Pringles and a glass of wine and think, I could do that.
But, and I think I played it down as well. I thought, it's all fake and it's not real. And
when the cameras are off, they'll all be having cakes and coffee.
And they're generally focused on the people that struggled through it, which, I think that don't always sell it the best. But my friend kind of just said, I think you should have a go at this. And straight away, I just like, no. And then he signed me up to it. And he come around, he's like, you've been invited to a fitness test in London. And I was like, no, I'm not going. And then he kind of persuaded me to go. He's like, it'd be really good. You can. So then it kind of gave me a bit of a purpose where I'm like, right, I'll get myself fit for this fitness test, and I'll go and I'll just smash this fitness test. So I goes down to London, and no joke, God, there must have been thousands of people, and there were like all sorts of shape sizes, like, these like CrossFit people, like shirts off, they were all massive. And then we went through the testing for day, which were kind of like, you did a bleep test, then some physical tests. I managed to like do pretty well in all them. Then you get invited to the next part, which is like psychometric testing. So I went and did that, and got invited to, I think you did some like kind of, some more like clinical fitness testing where you did like a VO2 max. And then he just kind of kept going like that. And all the way through, I was just thinking, well, I'm not going to go. It's just kind of giving me a reason to keep fit, get back in gym. And then eventually you get invited. So you just get told, you've been selected. We want to invite you to come away with us. They don't tell you where you're going. They just said, like, on this day, you need to arrive at Heathrow Airport and bring these things. And I can remember telling my friend, I'm like, oh, I've actually been invited, but I'm not going. And he was just like, you know, he just kind of pleaded with me to go, look, you'll not get this opportunity again. Like, just really consider it. You know, it'd be really cool if you did it. Yeah, so I made that decision and went. And similar to driving here, I was going all the way down thinking, what am I doing? Why am I going? I ain't got anything to add to this kind of thing. And
don't forget as well, this is months after the tragic event. So this is still... There's a whole host of emotions going through your mind around this. You know, this is a potential TV show.
Yeah.
This is you going, should I be on this? Is this the right thing to do? What does this look like? Can I do this? But I want to do it, but and the mixture of emotions you're probably feeling still at that moment was probably quite vast, wasn't it?
And I think weirdly, like I just want myself either. So I think maybe if that choice came up now, I maybe wouldn't do it. So I don't know, maybe it was just something at the time that were meant to happen. And
you mentioned something in there, Mark, though. You said it was almost like when you was going through that process of the fitness tests in London, temporarily it gave you purpose. It switched that mind off for even that 1 hour you was doing a fitness test. It refocused you onto something else.
Yeah.
And I think for anybody going through a tough time, would you say that that's quite a poignant thing to point out, the fact that if you do nothing, you ain't going to switch that brain?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's weird because you kind of, you know what I mean, I got put straight onto bereavement leave and I had 6 months away from work, or like 5 months away from work. And it's like, it is the right option. However, you then sat at home alone, you know, you know what I mean, I did have support networks from work, but...
When you're left alone with your thoughts, it's not a good thing.
I don't know what the right answer is, you know, as in, but it's like you need purpose, don't you? You need something to be doing and something to refocus your mind.
Just on that, Mark, the done thing in society is when somebody is grieving or is involved in a situation like this, put them on bereavement leave or whatever they call it, because you can't be at work.
Yeah.
But sometimes for a certain individual, that might be the worst thing for them.
Yeah.
Because sometimes keeping that brain busy or keeping going is what gets people through. Would you say that it's got to be each to their own?
Yeah, it has to be really measured against that person. Like Chelsey kind of had it very similar. She had 3 months away from work prior to taking her life, and I arguably think it was the worst thing that happened. Is she suddenly had no purpose, no get up. And it was like, I wouldn't say that it was like out of sight, out of mind, but it was like, you know, that they felt that was the best thing for her, is to not be at work. But in hindsight, I believe, you know, not that she should be in full duties, but maybe some kind of modified duties. But yeah, probably very similar for me afterwards as well, is like, you know, you kind of just get, you know, you don't need to be at work. And I can remember like, the occupational health nurse from my work coming to see me, and I was almost pleading to get back to work, which then maybe made it probably seem like I wasn't ready to be back at work.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and I think when I got into the show, or working towards the show, it kind of gave me some kind of purpose where it was like, right, well, I need to get myself fit again because of this. And then it, you know, and it just kind of...
And not only that, Matt, but I'm right in saying that this particular series was in Chile.
Yeah.
South America. Yeah. So not only are you going to take on this challenge, but you're going across the other side of the world in hot, humid conditions, in a climate that you're not really used to.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, as this is escalating, you're probably thinking, and then what I want to go into now is, you said driving there, you was doubting yourself.
Yeah.
On the plane, you're doubting yourself. Then you arrive in this country and you're thinking, can I do this? What if I'm out my depth?
Yeah.
So you have those doubts, don't you, as you go into Chile?
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember getting to the airport, and it's your first contact with all the other contestants, and I can remember just thinking, what have I done? Like, it felt like everyone were either pro or ex-pro or semi-pro at some or other, and I was thinking, I'm just a duck egg from Rotherham that plays a bit of football and runs about. It's like, what am I doing here? And I can remember getting onto the flight, and I can remember thinking, I think if someone came to me right now and said, you know, there's a back door here if you want to leave, I think I'd have jumped up, but I felt like I was kind of there and I had to go with it. yes, we kind of arrived in Chile, and it's all kind of secret. So even the flights, we flew to Madrid, we didn't know where we were going. We then got a flight to Chile. And then you kind of get ushered off, put into your hotel room. You have to stay on your own. You eat your dinner in your hotel room for night. And then the next morning, we got up and they were like, yeah, we're going to do a bit of acclimatization, because a lot of stuff we did were at altitude. And I think the camp we were staying at were about 2,000 meters above sea level. So everything were at altitude. And a lot of people really, really struggled initially with altitude. And I can remember feeling it instantly.
Do you think some of your training as a firefighter helped with that? You know, like performing with a respirator on, as an example, you know?
Yeah, possibly. I think definitely with the disruption of sleep and stuff like that, it helped. Like, as in being able to perform highly, kind of, you know, at any moment. I think the fire service really helped with that. And then I can remember even just preparing my clothes ready so that if they came in, it was like I was ready to go. So I think having that mindset, which probably set me apart a little bit, of being prepared.
And fast forward to the end, and then we'll rewind and explore it a little bit. So the show, all in all, so how long was you out there from start to finish in terms of the process? Because obviously what you see on the edit is different to the actual time of what you spent. So what was the total process of being out in Chile?
So it was 2 weeks.
2 weeks, 2 full weeks, day and night, hardly any sleep, dehydrated, not much food, relentless agenda, both mentally and physically. And you ended up being one of the winners of the show.
Yeah, and I would definitely stress that as well. It's like amount of people that I've spoke to after, and they're like, "Oh, but what happened when cameras went off?" And I'm like, "They literally never went off. Like, never. I never believed really that I was being filmed. It felt like I were on a military course. Like, it were really authentic. You know what I mean? There were obviously periods where, you know, all the cameras would come out, the drones would go up, and you knew at that point. But you were focused on a task, and I'd say we had, like, Ant Middleton especially, he treated it like it were a course. To him, it was a course. It wasn't a TV show. So in that sense, it was really authentic, and that kind of helped you to relax in it and perform better. But yeah, like it was definitely harder than it looks on TV.
So throughout the 2 weeks, you're only 6 months post tragedy. You are every single day being, you know, lack of sleep. You're physically and mentally drained. You are not eating as many calories as you would probably desire. And what that leads to is highly emotional states, doesn't it? Can I ask, how many times did you think about Chelsey on those 2 weeks? And which way did it go? Did it drive and rally you, or did it make you have a little bit of a wobble?
Yeah, like every minute or every day, I'd say, like, I think, yeah, and I think it's still same now. Like, it's from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, there's some kind of presence there. But yeah, he was like a really big driver. And I think, like, again as well, it's easy to perform when you don't care as much about yourself or what happened. You know what I mean? As in, I think there were parts of me quite sadistically thinking, if I drop dead, I won't care two hoots. You know what I mean? So I was happy to push beyond probably what most people would want to quit at. And I think there were a little bit of kind of hoping that it would break me to some degree, that, you know, that then that's kind of, you know, that's the limit. So I think weirdly you can push yourself further when you're in that kind of mindset as well, where life's probably less important than some things.
So for one of the first times, the shackles of fear of failure and looking bad were off, because at that moment in time, it didn't matter.
Yeah, I think when you were immersed in a task, I think outside of them, you crippled with anxiety or what could happen, what's next, will you be able to make it, will you not, will you embarrass yourself, will you look good, like, you know, will people be proud of what you've done? Like, I think the worst bits were the bits where you kind of got to relax a little bit, or there were nothing happening, but it was so sporadic that you didn't know you'd have 3 hours to relax. So you'd sit there just full of anxiety.
And even then you're thinking someone's going to burst through the door at any minute, so I've got to be ready to go, Yeah,
and literally every time the door opened, you think, that's it, it's starting again. And like I said, you didn't know what time of day it were. It didn't really matter.
What was the toughest bit of the whole thing? So we watch it on telly, and you've got the physical aspect, you've got the interviews with the DS staff, you've got the interrogation phase where Spencer, who works for us, he was one of the interrogators. Which was the toughest bit? If you was close to breaking out any point, which bit was it?
Yeah, interrogation, without a doubt. But I don't know if that's because it's like the build-up of everything. It's at the end, so physically you're shot anyway. You know, mentally you're absolutely drained. You know, you've not been. I can remember I think for the full, you know, maybe 30 odd hours before interrogation, we didn't get fed.
No.
So you kind of go into it not in a great state anyway. But yeah, interrogation were brutal, and weirdly the females, because ours was the show with the first time that females were allowed to partake, and the females for me really excelled in interrogation. They seemed so strong. So I think like mentally,
that's interesting.
Yeah, in that side, I think they were a lot stronger than the males. But yeah, interrogation were brutal. I think it was like 24 hours. You have your headset on. It was just a constant loop of like kids screaming, women screaming, like pigs being slaughtered, white noise, like nails on chalkboards, that kind of, and it was just constant for 20 odd hours, put in stress positions and yeah, like again, you probably see it on TV and think it's, you know, a couple of hours, but yeah, it was hours and hours, and it was freezing. It
sounds
it
horrific.
It was brutal. It was brutal.
Sounds horrific. So you win the show. There was a couple of moments in the show where you were interviewed and you talked openly about Chelsey and where you was at. I think that captured the hearts of a lot of the audience, and I think by the end of it, a lot of people were rooting for you. What was life immediately after like? Did you find yourself? Did it just go back to normal, or for a short space of time did it change?
Yeah, it definitely changed, and I say it has since. I guess a bit chaotic at first, because obviously it doesn't get aired straight away. So I had probably a 6-month period where it was kind of looming. You know that. Again, you still don't know how it's going to be edited and how it's going to go out and what people are going to think of it. So I kind of came back, went straight back to work. And then I knew the following year that it would come in. And then weirdly, I've watched bits of it, but I haven't really watched it. And I don't know if that's because, I don't know, I just don't want to see myself. But I've kind of seen bits, what I've been shown, and but I never really sat and watched it, like the full episode.
I mean, you had an incredible beard.
Yeah.
Was that just like you'd not shaven for that many months, and it was like because you had a huge beard on it, and that's why I bet sometimes people don't recognise you as much now.
Yeah, which probably works like a bit of an advantage, really. That, you know, I didn't get recognised as much. But yeah, it was a little bit chaotic, I'd say. And then I guess when it went, I guess I got quite a lot of attention from it. And again, I'd never really had social media, so I kind of got advised to get social media, which, you know, has its pros and its cons.
Yeah.
But so that were all kind of brand new to me, and I think you can get kind of tied up in when you start getting a lot of attention. Is like, you know, your ego grows a little bit. But yeah, we're all a bit crazy and chaotic.
Because you're still, if you think about it, you're still 7, 8, 9 months post trauma.
Yeah.
So did you find yourself in this juxtaposition at times where you had this exciting thing happening? You just come off the show. There was opportunities now ahead for you, but you're still grieving.
Yeah.
And did you have that mixture of purpose versus guilt versus purpose? Did you go through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that one of the like really good things was, you know, I had a lot of support from Chelsey's family through it all, which, you know, I think that were kind of always a bit of a moral compass. Where, you know, if they're happy with it, then I'm happy with it, kind of thing. I'd say with the grieving, you know, maybe it went on that deep level grieving went on longer than maybe it would have done if I had not been on the show. Maybe because I didn't process it fully, or as naturally as what you probably wouldn't normally do. It was probably quite extreme to process it that way, and for it to be so like publicised. So maybe in hindsight you look back and think, you know what, maybe it took me 3 years to actually deal with it fully. Whereas I'm not saying it wouldn't have done that before, but it's hard to know, innit?
Mm. And since then, talk about opportunities. You've gone on to take on some ridiculous challenges. I mean, you must be a glutton for punishment, Mark, because you're doing these ultramarathons, you're doing 6-day events, you're putting your body through stuff that the average human being doesn't do. In fact, most human beings don't do, let's be honest. I mean, give us an example of a couple of the ridiculous challenges you've done. You were talking to me about a few the other day.
Yeah, I think, kind of niche has been the kind of multi-day events. So, that, you know, the 250 kilometre events. And I did Dragon's Back, which is like 380 kilometres, which is like top of Wales, from North Wales to South Wales, which is like, you know, it's deemed to be one of the hardest races in the world. I've done some crazy stuff.
And do you do this for your personal purpose and challenge? Do you do it for a cause? Do you do it to test yourself? What are the reasons you're doing this?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I ask myself that, especially when I'm midway through them. But I think it's a mixture of everything. I think there's still a little bit of a sadistic underlying where you kind of think maybe this will be the limit, this will break me. And sometimes I think you kind of weirdly urge it, where you think hopefully this will be the one, and then that's it, it's done. But then I think the training's always good to focus on the training, the preparation that you need to do beforehand, and then I think maybe the sense of achievement at the end, and then I think for me, especially the big stuff, it really simplifies life. Like for me, it gives me a bit of clarity where you kind of go, a lot of things are not really that important. The main things are just, you know, when you're going through stuff like that, it's moving, eating, sleeping. Like they're the only things that you need to worry about, nothing else. And it really does that to you where, you know, you're just literally thinking, I just need to get up this hill, I just need to get to the next checkpoint. And it really breaks down and simplifies life. And I think it's just like quite a good way of doing it.
Do you think there's an element of your psychology now, Mark, where, you know, post-tragedy, you always need something to focus the mind? You need the next challenge. You need the next flag on the hill, the next milestone to keep you focused and to keep that purpose alive. Or is that just you anyway, regardless of the situation in 2018? Do you think that you're always a person who needs something to keep?
I think more the latter, and I think that kind of just triggered it further. Where, you know, I think I think the more you do, the more you want to do. Then, and it just kind of grew in that sense. But
do you get a kick out of Matt? Do you get a kick out of being able to do things that other people can't do? Do you know, like I say, kick? Do you? One of my good friends, I don't know if you've listened to the podcast with us, Rich Davini. He's a former Navy SEAL commander of SEAL Team 6 in the US. These are the guys who got Bin Laden. These are the Special Forces guys. He's the author of The Attributes, and we're the UK licensee for The Attributes. And when he says about Navy SEAL training, which is one of the hardest in the world, as you know, and they go through Hell Week and surf torture and all this, and he says, like, when we're all honest with ourselves, you can say you want to fight for your country and make a difference all you want. He said, but I just wanted to see if I could be a badass. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see if I could be the 10% of people out of 100 people who could finish that course. And so there's an intrinsic internal driver there. Can I do stuff that other people can't do? Would you say there's a bit of that in you?
Possibly. But it's weird. I don't generally believe that I think anybody can do it. I think it's just the will or want to do it. I think it's not that people can't do it. They just don't want to do it. Like, there's no incentive to do it. You know, I think if I held a gun to your head and said, you know, or to your family's head and said, you know, go run a marathon, you'd do it and you'd get around it. It'd hurt, but you'd be able to do it because the need to do it is greater. You know what I mean? And I think the weird thing with people that do a lot of endurance events is, for some reason, they've got the want to do it. there's some, I guess, within us that makes us want to do it. But I don't believe it's like it singles you out that there's only you that could do it, or there's these select people that could do it. I think anybody can do it. It's just they generally don't want to do it. There's probably a lot of stuff that other people do that I don't want to do. Don't mean I can't do it. It just means I just got no desire to do it.
Like public speaking on a stage in front of 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Mark. It's not the top of your list, is it?
Exactly, but it is exactly that, isn't it? For a lot of people, they'd see that as being crazy. Why would you want to subject yourself to that? Or they think that maybe you've got something inherently in you that makes that easy, which you haven't. No. You've just had to train yourself to be comfortable doing that. And I'm sure most days you stand up and you have all them doubts and feelings, but you've had to work really hard to be good at doing that. And that's what I think a lot of people sometimes miss is like they see these events and they see people running marathons and they kind of, you get congratulated for the medal at the end and well done, but they miss the part where you go, how many days, nights did I have to get out when it was raining, 5 o'clock in the morning, when it's dark. Nobody sees the hard work, the grind, they see the bit at the end, and then that's what makes it seem impossible. Because
it's funny you should say that because, some are tongue in cheek, but some of my mates and other people go, you get paid to speak for a living. That's the easiest job in the world. And I'm like, I still get nervous every single time I'm about to go on a stage or whatever it might be. And what people haven't seen is 15 years of repetition of all the times you've dragged yourself up there, got nervous, delivered it, the crash in the aftermath, the self-doubt. How do I sound? How do I come across? How do I look? And then they don't see the 50, they just see that 1 45-minute sort of great keynote and go, this comes easy to you and that's the easiest job in the world. Can you imagine being paid to do that? But they don't see what goes into it. And it's the same with the endurance events and the stuff you're doing. The amount of effort that goes in that people don't see is huge.
Yeah, and like the sacrifice, having to miss certain things it's similar to, I guess, what you're doing with public speaking is people won't see the amount of hours you have to put in to prepare for it, and then the amount of critique you have to do every time you do it to improve, and it's exactly the same with a lot of things in life, isn't it?
I mean, you'd hate my career, Mark, because the one thing you got to do is you got to watch yourself back on camera all the time, and the reason you've got to watch yourself back is because if you're going to improve, you need to pick up on all the things that you can improve upon or that you don't feel quite landed or whatever it might be. Now, even for someone like me, it's not great watching yourself back all the time because we all see ourselves and hear ourselves different to what we actually, how we look and sound. It's a thing in psychology. We hear our tone of voice different to what other people hear it.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly going, especially people from Yorkshire, I sound thick. I don't pronounce my words properly. And you're overcritical on it. But to other people, there's a real authenticity and realness to that, So tell me, Matt, a couple of last things. What's next for you? So you're still in the fire service. I know you've had a little bit of a moment where you've questioned that.
Yeah.
I think you're back out the other end of that. But you still continue to take on your challenges. You're still going forward in like what have you thought too much about it? What's next for Mark?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I used to have a plan. I think I used to kind of think my whole life was mapped out. But yeah, now I kind of just, I still have stuff that I want to do, but I think it's a lot looser now. And I think the main thing is as long as I'm happy and the people around me are happy, and I'm healthy, then, and I'm still moving, I'm still getting out, then that's kind of what I always aspire for. It's like when I spoke to you the other day, and I was kind of saying about fitness for me, it ain't about just doing these hard things. It's like something I want to do when I'm 60, 70 years old. It's like so important to me. So it's something that I really cherish. But yeah, for future, a couple of races planned for next year, a couple of big races, but yeah, just taking it easy and enjoying work.
And Men's Mental Health Day is coming up. You've got an event going on, I think, at your service. Is getting involved in mental health causes and days important? And I guess if there's a lot of people listening to this, and thank you for being open and sharing with us your story, because it can't be easy. I certainly appreciate it, and it inspires me. I'm sure there's people who are listening and watching this who as some way can connect to it, or may not, while they're just taking inspiration from it. But as we come up to Men's Mental Health Day in particular, like what are the key things you're planning for this event, and what would the messages be that you think from your experience is really important for people to understand?
Yeah, so probably similar again. I find it hard to believe that sometimes I offer anything in that sense, and I just try to be myself and explain what I've done, and if hopefully it does help someone, or hopefully it does inspire someone. But yeah, the event at work. So again, quite tragically, it's a bit of a thing in public sector at the minute. So we lost 2 firefighters to mental health early this year. Which then I guess it kind of drove me to think, I wanted to do something to kind of mitigate it, or help people to some degree. And the whole idea was to arrange a day where it's kind of like a toolkit that hopefully by the end of the day someone can take something away that they can use, whether they struggle or don't struggle. It's like we're just going to offer things to people that they can practice. So each speaker, I obviously tried to grab yourself, but you're a busy man.
Next time, mate. Next event, let's get it in early.
Yeah. But each speaker kind of offers something really different, and different experiences, what they've been through. So I'm really hoping that it'll offer something to everyone. The key things I'd say for myself is, and it's quite a cliche, but yeah, like speaking to people, kind of dropping your ego a little bit. And like asking for help, seeking out, whether it is therapy or friends or whatever it is. And I'd like to think that I've tried most things. I have tried therapy, and I wouldn't discredit it. It didn't work for me. I found more comfort in speaking to kind of that network of friends and colleagues. But yeah, I think for me, I'd always encourage everyone is to, whether you're struggling or not, is just to speak to people and have them people who you can confide in with. If you've got a problem, try and share it. And generally when you do, you'll always feel a little bit better about it, and the right people will only support you with it.
I love that. And last question. We always ask this question on every podcast, and I guess it links in nicely to some of the stuff we've been talking about. Leadership is a massive part of what we do here at T2. I always ask, who is the greatest leader you've ever worked for and why? And I guess along the way over the last few years, certainly since 2018, you've probably needed some good leadership at times and some understanding leadership. But that aside, how would you answer that question? Who is the best leader you've ever worked with, and why would you pick them?
It's a difficult question. And I feel very, very lucky. I've had some really, really good leaders and some really, really bad ones as well. But I feel fortunate for having both. I feel like you've got to. Sometimes I've learnt more from the bad ones than I have from the good ones. Like, if all you have is good ones, you think that's normal. But yeah, and I think it's changed. I think I still, as I'm changing and developing, I think the people that I'm kind of drawn to, or their styles, changes with it too. One that particularly stands out, and again, it sounds quite a small thing, but I can remember being in Afghanistan, and my warrant officer who were there, I'd barely seen him, and we worked at completely different ends at camp. And I can remember one morning he came on our section, and he knew every single person's name, and I just thought that was like unbelievable. Like it was so welcoming in that sense, and he was clearly in charge. He was clearly a leader, but I think to have that kind of that level to think, that he made everyone feel important. And I think at that age, like early 20s, I think it was so good to see that. And I guess it's something that I try my hardest to like emulate these kind of things. And then as I've gone up, I think it just keeps changing, and people keep bringing different things. The chief who's in charge of South Yorkshire Fire Service at minute, I think he's brilliant. He's kind of got this like aura about him. He walks in a room and he's just got this presence, but yeah, he's so personable with everyone. He knows everything that's going off with each individual, and he'll stop and he'll talk, and But equally, you just know he's in charge. He can make them decisions, but he'll listen to everyone. Yes, I don't think I could narrow it down to like one single person. I feel like you kind of take the best bits from everyone who you meet, and then you kind of reflect on the bad bits that you meet, or how certain things don't land so well.
I think that's an interesting point you make about you can learn a lot from the good ones, but you can also learn as much, if not more, from the not so good ones. And I absolutely concur with that. You can always in life. It's like parents. I always say with parenting, you either want to replicate your parents or you want to rebel and be anything but them. It's the same in leadership. You want to replicate the behaviors and the qualities of the great leaders, and you want to absolutely cast eye and say, that's not what I want to be when you observe the bad traits. So it's an interesting point. Nobody's really ever answered that question in that way. So that's quite interesting. Mark, we're coming to the end of our time. I could probably speak to you for hours. And like you're talking there about those leadership things that have influenced you. You know, don't underestimate how you influence others. And I know a couple of times already on this podcast, and when we speak, you say, well, I don't know what information I have that could be useful to anybody else. And that's that humility that's constantly always going to be there for you. And there's a good side to that. But my parting comment would, please don't underestimate the influence and power that you have. You know, the motivation it will give people, the inspiration people will take from your story is huge. I'm inspired sat here today. I mean that sincerely. You know, not many people can say they've ever remotely closely walked in your shoes. A lot can, but not the majority. And what it gives me is that actually you can overcome anything in life if you really, really want to, and you put your mind to it, and you have the right people around you. I think a main theme that's come out of this is purpose. You have to have something to aim towards. If you don't feel like you have, and we do this in our work, Mark, around why purpose is so important for people. When people lose their purpose, their sense of purpose, when they don't have that reason to get up in the morning and go and do something and contribute in a meaningful way, mentally you struggle. And so anybody listening to this, find your purpose or create one, or do anything you can to give you that get up and go and something to aim towards. And if you can do it, given the circumstances, I think anybody can. So I've loved speaking to you, Mark. How's it been?
Yeah, it's been really cool. Yeah, it's been really cool. And I appreciate that. Yeah, and I completely agree. I think, it is purpose, but I think people got to be prepared that there's going to be work with it as well. You have to work hard, and I have to work hard every single day. Like, just, some days just to get out of bed and to want to move forward. But then I think that ties into like the resilience side of it, is like, the planning always going to go how you want it to go. It's going to go up and down, and it's that ability to keep moving forward when it's not going exactly how you want.
Love it. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And we'll be back shortly with another People Performance podcast.
Cheers, mate.
The People Performance Podcast, brought to you by T2,